We'll do Christie by proxy, right?
Is he in any?
Sounds like a disorder.
Chris Christie by proxy is a disorder?
Sounds like it. It's like Munchausen's by proxy.
It sounds it's like secondhand fat or something.
Yes, exactly. It's like where you make someone else fat so you can get high off of watching them eat food.
Yeah, eat those Doritos. Yeah. Sounds like a weird fetish.
There's our hard intro.
You're giggling about your intro?
It's so stupid. It's not even that funny. It's really not funny. I'm just going to say it. It's fine. You're not going to laugh. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Human Reaction Podcast, your weekly source for independent commentary on news, politics, and culture, where everything is made up and the points don't matter, just like the fourth Republican primary debate. David, what are we talking about today?
Nice.
See, I told you it was stupid.
Yeah, that was pretty dumb. All right, well,
shut up. Does nobody else watch Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Crickets, Bennett. Crickets.
Yeah, it's going to work. Yeah, it's fine.
Welcome to the debate recap episode. We're going to do this a little bit differently this week. We're going to have this topic in one episode, and then we're going to do another one to cover some of the other things that happened this week, because there were important developments that weren't the Republican debates, which were entertaining and very interesting. We want to get into it with some detail.
But before we could do all of that, please like, comment, subscribe wherever you are. We were just looking at our YouTube, and our YouTube is closing in on 500 subs. We're almost there. We're about 20 away. So help us hit that mark, because that would be awesome. And also, wherever you're at, we cover tons of different topics on here. Go down to the chapter marks below to jump to wherever you want to go, if you kind of have a certain area that you're more interested in. And also join our Discord, because it keekeeps growing and it's fun in there.
And if you join our Discord, you can help me come up with more clever and entertaining intros than the one I just did.
And there's a lot of memes, a lot of fun memes.
So many fun memes. We have at least one meme we got to show today, which I think we'll probably get to a little later.
We're going to get to. Yeah, for sure.
All right, so kick us off, David. Where are we at?
Well, what are our overall impressions? We had the fourth debate. This is going to be the last debate of this year. The Iowa primary is only like 20-something days away, 30 days away.
Jeez.
And it's going to be on for reals, with caucuses going and votes going, and yeah.
I think, of
course, Trump wasn't there again. That's the other thing to note up front. Trump wasn't there. Why would he be? Vivek's doing his job for him.
Yeah.
So,
and Christie was very upset about it.
Yeah, Christie.
True. Yeah, Christie definitely went after Trump the most. I felt like. I think it was probably consensus, though, overall, that Ron DeSantis was the winner of the debate. Why do you guys think that is the impression, at least in the mainstream?
Depends where you go, because like if you're kind of an establishment person, you think Nikki Haley was the top, and then if you're kind of like just an internet person, you think Vivek was the top, and somewhere in there is like DeSantis kind of struck both chords.
Maybe it was more that like DeSantis had his best performance so far.
I definitely think that DeSantis, he seemed more personable, seemed like he had more of a spine. He was like much more aggressive. It was interesting watching him and Vivek tag teaming Nikki Haley throughout the whole thing.
Phrasing. Have to go back and cut that out.
Jesus.
Nope. You guys made it weird, not me.
I like all the attention, boys, was her line.
She did say that.
It was
very weird.
Very strange. Well, first off, second off, how did she dress, Joe? We need to address the elephant in the room, pun intended.
Wow, that is a good pun. Oh, wow. Nice. That's subtle. I like it.
Yeah.
You know what? So Bennett asked me this yesterday, and when he asked that question, I realized I didn't even notice, which I think is the point that I've been trying to make the whole time, is that it just shouldn't be distracting.
You got to bring her up on screen real quick. Let's see what the aesthetics speaks to him in real time.
Let me get a
red tie, looking standard.
Yep,
just
classic Republican.
Yeah, it's not distracting.
No, it's not distracting.
Just looks like a sweater.
Men have it so easy. Vivek just wears the exact same thing every debate.
I mean, that's like me, though. I just wear the same T-shirt every day.
You literally wear the same T-shirt every single day.
But by choice, right?
That's what you're. I'm fine. I'm judging.
I think she looks professional, and it was not something that drew my attention at all during the entire debate. I didn't even think about it one time. So I'm sorry if that's a letdown. But
no, I wanted you to criticize, but I gave it 5 stars.
You know, there is sort of a terry cloth vibe. It still has sort of, you know, I don't know.
You don't like the texture?
I don't like the texture as much. But really, like, we're reaching to the bottom of the barrel of commentary here. I have nothing wrong with what she's wearing. To
Misogynism is the only thing we offer in this podcast. So
misogynism and anti-Semitism.
Yeah,
that's what we got here.
Oh wow, it's such a good combination.
That's a joke, internet.
If you are a small business owner looking for exponential growth, you have to connect with Adam Thuen at Intellectual Patriots. He will revolutionize your business game and help you get to the next level. Adam can streamline your business practices and advertising strategies to improve your bottom line. His expertise in data engineering means he can build you the systems you need to collect and analyze market data. His mission is to provide you with invaluable insights to fuel your success. From grant writing and business proposals to digital systems integrations, even AI management. Intellectual Patriots is a one-stop shop for cutting-edge solutions. Don't wait another second. Visit intelpatriots.com to learn more. That's INTEL patriots.com. Okay, so now that we've thoroughly unpacked Nikki Haley's debate attire, how did you think that she did as far as her performance? Obviously, the mainstream would call her the winner, I think. Is that right?
New York Times did.
New York Times did?
No, New York Times put Christie as a winner. Sorry.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
Which is interesting because, and some of the critiques of the other candidates were that they're too conservative in the Republican primary. So
the New York Times picked the least conservative candidate.
Like acting like the primary is to be gauging like your average New York Times commentator. Like that's who matters for the the Republican
and these are
primary.
supposedly the conservatives of the New York Times.
Yeah.
Right. They pick them to be the ones that chart this thing. And of course, every time they're just like, Vivek is so annoying. Like that's their criticism. Like, DeSantis wasn't as compelling. It's like, I don't know. I was not impressed by their analysis.
I think Nikki Haley did a very good job in who she's trying to appeal to, which is like the donor class.
Boeing, probably, right?
Or just the donor class in general. Yeah, but yeah, like military contractors would be one of the factions that she's going for, right?
Sure.
And she even said that in the debate where she was bragging about how all of DeSantis's Wall Street donors left him for her, which is a very strange thing to hear on a debate. Like I've never typically hear a candidate talk about how much the big high dollar donors, like it's usually something that is like quiet, like that's the quiet part out loud that she's giving. So,
and does that speak to the average Republican voter as much as it speaks to perhaps other potential donors, right? Like, oh, well, crap, like maybe we should get on that train.
Yeah. Well, it does seem like there is money moving from DeSantis to Nikki Haley. Does seem to be the case.
I will just say, like, anecdotally, I don't know what list I got on, but I get more texts from the DeSantis ecosystem than anything else politically. Like, and I don't get political text, but I get like around a debate, I'll get one a day or two a day. And they're all about Ron DeSantis.
You're on a super PAC list somewhere.
I got on someone's list.
Yep.
Get me off the list, please.
Once you're on, you're never off.
I know. I block every single one and it always comes from a different number. It's impossible.
Really? So we do have some interesting policies that did get brought up. For example, we had some Ukraine policy really dominated the night. And this is, I think, where the inside or outside, grassroots versus elite dynamic comes the clearest, right? Where you have largely the elite donor class is very much considered, like a supporting the war in Ukraine, while you have Vivek and kind of the guy that's not there, kind of standing behind Vivek, maybe, there's more other grassroots candidate is Trump, being anti-Ukraine. So we have a great clip here to kind of summarize this, not just summarize, just watch this whole chat, because it really, it's the hottest moment of the debate for sure.
Foreign policy experience is not the same as foreign policy wisdom. I want everybody at home to know that I was the first person to say we need a reasonable peace deal in Ukraine. Now a lot of the neocons are quietly coming along to that position, with the exceptions of Nikki Haley and Joe Biden, who still support this, what I believe is pointless war in Ukraine. And I think those with foreign policy experience, one thing that Joe Biden and Nikki Haley have in common is that neither of them could even state for you 3 provinces in eastern Ukraine that they want to send our troops to actually fight for. Look at that. This is what I want people to understand. These people have, she has no idea what the hell the names of those provinces are, but she wants to send
and she's
our
like,
sons
damn
and
it.
daughters and our troops
Damn it.
and our military equipment to go fight it. So
she's trying to look smug, but I think she's really like, dang it, I think I don't know.
Stint at the UN and that makes $8 million
Christie is
after,
trying to jump
has
in,
real
like,
foreign policy experience. It takes an outsider to see this through. Look at the blank expression. She doesn't know the names of the provinces that she wants to actually fight for.
And now she's trying to play like victim card or something, like the little like shy look away. I don't know.
Okay, hold on. Let me just say something here. You know, his reasonable peace deal in Ukraine, he made it clear. Give them all the land they've already stolen. Promise Putin you'll never put Ukraine in Russia, and then trust Putin not to have a relationship with China. Let me tell you something. That's no
That's
reasonable.
not my deal. That's not my deal.
Yes, it's exactly what you said.
Describe my
You do
deal.
this at every debate.
I'll tell you exactly what it is.
Don't interrupt
tell
me.
you
I
what the
didn't
deal
interrupt
is.
you.
Yeah, you did.
Okay? You
Tell
say
them
this.
about how you
You
want to
do
send our kids
this.
to die.
You
Go
do
for it.
this at
Promise money.
every debate. You go out on the stump and you say something. All of us see it on video. We confront you out on the debate stage. You say you didn't say it, and then you back away. And I want to say,
It doesn't describe anything that just
I'm
happened.
not done yet.
Well, this
now
is
look.
this is
And
nonsense.
I don't see how anyone can find that compelling.
Before we continue that clip, yeah, no, that is an interesting thing about Chris Christie is in this, he had two lines of attack that he kept using. One was this type of a thing where it's like, you go out onto the thing and then you say you didn't say it. And then another one was like, and then they just don't answer the question. And he kept like trying to drill DeSantis later on about how he's not answering the question when like DeSantis was straight up answering the question that was there. It was very, it's very,
That's how he's trying to separate from it. And what's also frustrating is how he doesn't even make a lot of sense. He's like, oh, you're going to keep Putin in Russia? And it is like, well, you have the other opinion? Well, that opinion exists. What's your plan for that, Chris? You know, like, what? Like, he's trying to make his position look absurd as he advances the most absurd radical position possible,
which is like regime change in Russia.
Yeah,
like,
and not to mention
keep Putin there.
Oh, you're going to just win this war that we've been losing for a year and a half now. I mean, come on, you're not just going to win it. Like, that's a choice.
Totally crazy to me. But the other part of it, though, I think that's telling in this is that Nikki Haley doesn't just interrupt and say the three provinces. Like, and like you pointed out, like she could have answered the question she wanted to answer. She should have interjected there to show that, you know, she either, you know, dismissed the characterization or actually did know, but she was silent the whole time and trying to look like smug. And then, you know, as Christie came to kind of, you know, defend her later, you know, she's like playing this like victim card or something. It just seemed so glaring to me that like the wheels were turning so fast. She was like, crap, what are they? Like she really did get stumped. It felt like she got stumped.
It's one of those, I think it's one of those things in the moment, because we also do have a clip. She does eventually actually say them, but I believe it's while Christie and Vivek are fighting. And I think even DeSantis is jumping in there. So like she just kind of says it while everything's going on. So it just like it gets missed, but it happens way later.
Yeah.
So she's probably like sitting there thinking, she's like, okay, I'm going to have a comeback. Okay, yeah, Donbass. Yeah, she's like,
that is exactly what it felt like.
Yeah. Because like she does actually know them, but she didn't know them when it mattered for the sake of the clip, because perception is reality right here. All the clips are going to be is Vivek saying, you guys don't even know 3 provinces in Ukraine, and then the side by side of her going,
exactly,
with like a thinking face. Right?
It did not look good.
So like the perception is what matters on this.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if she actually knows them, and she does actually know them, but to the internet that won't.
Do we want
matter,
to watch the rest, or do we want to go into how this is actually an Aleppo moment?
Yeah, let's see if there's more value here to be gained from this clip.
This is the fourth debate that you would be voted in the first 20 minutes as the most obnoxious blowhard in America. So shut up for a little while.
I'm going to respond to that.
I want to say your version of
We're going to let you respond to that. We're going to let you respond to that.
I'll take
Let him
that.
finish.
I want to say something else. We're now 25 minutes into this debate, and he has insulted Nikki Haley's basic intelligence. Not her positions,
The clip
her
to her.
basic intelligence. She doesn't know regions. She wouldn't be able to find something on a map that his 3-year-old could find. Look, if you want to disagree on issues, that's fine. And Nikki and I disagree on some issues. But I'll tell you this, I've known her for 12 years, which is longer than he's even started to vote in a Republican primary. And while we disagree about some issues and we disagree about who should be president of the United States, what we don't disagree on is this is a smart, accomplished woman. You should stop insulting
So
her.
I'm going to take this.
How dare you?
The puppy dog eyes are real. Like she
Yeah.
is playing that up so hard right here.
It is strange because like there's another moment in the debate where there's like a call out of the whole Nikki Haley calling Vivek a misogynist type of thing too. So like there's like the strong independent woman, and then she just kind of like lets Christie defend her and white knight her in this moment. You know, like there's a certain optics confliction that is existing there, I think, to just people that are watching.
Well,
it.
I find it also slightly ironic that Christie is calling out Vivek for insulting Nikki while just having called him an obnoxious blowhard. Like,
Which you can only do because he's younger.
interesting.
Right? If they're older, then they're being too aggressive and they're being a bully. But if they're younger, then they're obnoxious. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's playing on an ageism dynamic and also an outsider-insider dynamic. Like he's coming from the outside, and how could he know anything about public policy? He hasn't been in Congress, and he's always playing up his time in the DOJ for Bush, right? Like that gave him all of his information about how to be an actor in politics. And therefore that's why he's qualified. As if like that's the thing that the public are looking for. And the public's not looking for qualifications. They're looking for the right ideas right now. And I think it's actually totally, once again, compelling to the donor class, not compelling to the grassroots regular people.
So what did Vivek do that made you guys feel like, and make the broader internet feel like he won this debate?
I think the ending here, actually, he caps it out and he gets the last word, and it really makes, I think if it just would have ended here, it would have been pretty tough for Vivek to come back. But because at this point, everyone's kind of going like, what did Christie say? And is he actually being a bully? And, and it is playing on male versus female dynamics that are interesting, right? That aren't clearly, there's a double standard here for sure that they're going to use. But then he gets the last word.
So first of all, I think we just learned something from Christie. We learned three things.
Go ahead.
Learned three things right there. First of all, Christie also doesn't know what provinces in eastern Ukraine he actually wants us to fight for.
As he nods.
His version of foreign policy experience was closing a bridge from New Jersey to New York.
Yeah.
So do everybody a favor, just walk yourself off that stage, enjoy a nice meal, and get the hell out of this race. When it comes to Nikki, I think if you're going to actually send your sons and daughters to go die in somebody else's war, you better, excuse me, Chris, I'm
interrupting.
speaking, and I'm not done yet.
the moment.
I'm
Speaking.
and we're going to be done. So listen up to this, is if these people want to send your sons and daughters to go die in Ukraine, they've been arguing for it for a year. $200 billion of our taxpayer money sent over. Neither of them could even name for you the provinces that they actually want to protect. And this is the people who have been touting their so-called foreign policy experience. It is intellectual fraud. These people are lying to you, the same people who told you about weapons and mass destruction in Iraq. To justify that invasion, didn't know the first thing about it, yet they sent thousands of our sons and daughters to go die. The same people who told you the same in Afghanistan, where the Taliban is still in charge 20 years later. $7 trillion of our national debt due to these toxic neocons. You could put lipstick on a Dick Cheney. It is still a fascist neocon.
Thank
and
you,
you got
Mr.
to see that
Ramaswamy.
today.
Thank you,
It's
Mr.
Dick Cheney
Ramaswamy.
all over again in this party.
Can I?
And that
Can I
was
just-
masterfully done to return to his basic point and then drive it home further. That's why he won.
I completely agree, and I highlighted that moment as like one of Vivek's major wins in this debate. To me, it felt synonymous with Ron Paul's Giuliani moment, particularly with the juxtaposition with Christie being this like New York, New Jersey tough guy mentality,
Trying to shame him, right? Same tactic.
exactly. And he drilled him on it. He nailed it.
And not backing down. That's the thing. In public discourse, you do not back down. That moment of weakness is the thing that will basically hit you the hardest.
Well, and there's an added thing here too, is that clip was 4.5 minutes long and no one actually named a province yet in that time. So like it does make it when Nikki Haley eventually names a province, which I think comes after this clip. Like there's a lot of time that exists there, right?
I do have it linked. Let's jump into that and you can see how that dynamic was, because I think watching it actually tells you something too. And then we can talk about these areas and how this is the wrong answer, even as she gives the answer.
Yeah, it's funny that the tweet is coming from like a very pro-Ukrainian person. I'm seeing a Ukrainian flag in this in this video clip right here. Whoever this is. But yeah, this is the moment where she does.
I think we've had
All right, let's talk about this. Where's the Donetsk region? Let's do it in order.
I don't actually know, but I'm not running for president.
The Donetsk region has been at war in civil war with the government of Ukraine since 2014. They've been dropping bombs on each other for a very long time. So she really wants to send your sons and daughters to die, to get Russia to not control an area that voted overwhelmingly to become part of Russia, and Russia denied them some years ago. An area that is majority speaking Russian in the home, who part of the major reason why they don't want to become part of Ukraine and didn't want to, and this was a major conflict before the Russian invasion, was because the government of Ukraine banned their language. This is an area that is overwhelmingly Orthodox Russian by religion, and their church is currently banned in Ukraine. So she wants to send your sons and daughters to go make sure that Kiev controls Donetsk, not Donetsk controlling itself or Russia controlling it. That's why your sons and daughters will die. And she fed into that by doing this. This is why it's bad debate strategy, is to answer that question that way, is because now you're committed to your foreign policy is to send young men and women to make sure that Donetsk is controlled by Kyiv, not, Russia. Luhansk is a little bit tougher. I mean, it's a little more of a split area, but it is an area that's overwhelmingly controlled. In fact, a lot of the spring offensive was targeted at Luhansk, and it failed miserably to move the ball. So what's her plan to actually do that? That isn't going to just result in mass death. And lastly, Crimea. Crimea has been controlled by Russia since the Obama administration.
Long time.
Yeah, and before then, from the end of the USSR till 1790 was controlled by the Russians. So, why? Make that case. And of course, not only is the knowledge question isn't the question. The real question is, what is your real foreign policy? And it's a trap. It's meant to be. It's a debate trap. And that's why I want to point out, as much as the best situation is if she would have named these right off the bat, then Vivek could have came back and said, let's talk about these districts, and could have exposed that and actually would have gotten the foreign policy further. But she didn't want to feed into it, so it really stuck her. This is the difference between this moment and I believe, what was the guy, the libertarian got caught on Aleppo. The Aleppo moment.
Gary Johnson.
Aleppo moment was different than this in the sense that it wasn't meant to draw a policy debate out. What it was meant to do is just confuse somebody and then make them look like a buffoon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because they were talking in the Gary Johnson moment, which was a very famous moment from back in 2016, right?
Yeah.
I believe it was on CNN, might have been MSNBC. They were talking about something completely different, and then they're like, "What would you do about Aleppo?" And Gary's like, "What?" In the moment, you're like, "Is that an acronym? Is it what is it?" It was like, "You don't know about Aleppo, sir?"
Yeah.
And it was just like, "Wait, what are we talking about?" Because this is when everything was going on in Syria. Aleppo was in Syria, refugee crisis at the time, and it's just like you catch people by just doing a quick topic change, and then all the clips are Gary Johnson doesn't know about Aleppo, right?
Yeah. Right. What's even worse, if they would have said Syria, I bet he could have easily made the pivot, but it was one particular area in there, and it's not a non-trivial one. So don't not letting Gary Johnson off the hook completely, and the edibles might have had something to do with it.
Well, I think what had to do it was because Trump was a factor in that election. The media was really trying to prop up Gary Johnson at the time, and then when they learned that he was taking more from the left than the right, then they turned on him. And Gary Johnson thought everybody was being super nice at him at all these corporate news agencies, and then as soon as the polling showed that he was actually a boon to Trump, not to Clinton, they were just like flip, and then that's when the Aleppo moment happens. Yeah.
So that the key difference is: are you doing this? What is the motive for this sort of challenge to somebody? Because look, I mean, I'm not always the best at geography. I make mistakes in geography, but and that shouldn't be a disqualification for president. But the question is where are you willing to send troops to die? That is the core of foreign policy, and she doesn't have a foreign policy that's at all in line with the grassroots of the GOP right now. So and that's why she's going to lose at the end of the day, if you ask me. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me that this is where we're at right now in American discourse, where foreign policy is the number one question for the Republican primary. I think that will turn on the Republican primary.
Interesting. Do we know where everybody's polling right now as a result of this last debate?
I don't have any post polls on this one. But we do have we are going to cover everybody. We're going to hit Ron DeSantis. We're going to talk some more about Christie. We're going to talk more about Haley. But we do have another kind of like key time of the night here for Vivek, right?
This, in my opinion, was my favorite moment of the night. It was his other memeable moment. So, like, something that I've really loved about Vivek in here is like he's really just taking the memes. Like the whole like name 10 books thing is like a meme. So he's just like name 3 regions, like, and you know, it's all. And this is another one. I think that I think everyone that's been on the internet has probably seen at least the image of this right here. Is I think that he purposely went in here trying to craft a meme template that can be used as like touch point marketing throughout this. Like, it's so cleverly done right here. But it's also, I think that there's some really strong substance in this moment as well. This is another kind of battle between Nikki Haley and Vivek right here.
Mr. Ramaswamy, when discussing your Hindu faith in September, you seemed to take a shot at Ambassador Haley, who is also Indian American and who converted to Christianity as an adult. You said, an easy thing for me to do, being a politician, is to shorten my name, profess to be a Christian, and then run. Make Vivek Vicky or whatever, end quote. Are you questioning Nikki Haley's Christian convictions? And why has your campaign made a point of referring to Ambassador Haley by her given first name, Nimarata, even though she has gone by Nikki for her whole life?
Well, my whole deal is if Nikki Haley, of all people, should know how to pronounce my name correctly, the rest of the news media can learn it. My deal is I'll call her Nikki when she can say my own name right. That's our little fun side bet there. Here's what I will say is deeper. I don't question her faith, but I question her authenticity. And I think that's deeper here. We were just talking about the trans issue. This is a symptom of a deeper cancer in American life, identity politics. This new religion that says your race, your gender, and your sexuality are your identity. It is anti-American. It is meritocratic. It's anti-meritocratic, and it is dividing this country to a breaking point. And I've spoken about this to the left. My books are all about this. I've preached this to the left, but it's even worse when Republicans try to play the same game. We're talking about that trans issue. And Nikki Haley's campaign launch video sounded like a woke Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light ad talking about how she would kick in heels. At the first debate, she said that only a woman can get this job done. That's what she said. After the third debate, when I criticized Ronna McDaniel after 5 failed years of leadership of this party, and criticized Nikki for her corrupt foreign dealings as a military contractor, she said that I have a woman problem. Nikki, I don't have a woman problem. You have a corruption problem. And I think that that's what people need to know. Nikki is corrupt. This is a woman who will send your kids to die so she can buy a bigger house. This is the problem. Using identity politics more effectively than Kamala Harris is a form of intellectual fraud. And it actually needs to end. There's our donor puppet masters wielding their puppet right up here tonight. This is how this game is played. The puppet masters put up their puppet, and I reject the use of identity politics in this party. It has been a cancer coming from the left, and I'm sick and tired of the double standards the people of this country are too. Having 2 X chromosomes does not immunize you from criticism.
Thank you, sir.
And for those that were just listening, you've probably seen it on the internet, but when Vivek says that Nikki is corrupt, he holds up a notepad that just says Nikki equals corrupt on it. And that is the meme template that I was saying I think he purposely tried to make, because when you hold up a notepad or a whiteboard or something like that on the internet, people will blank it out and then start putting whatever they want onto that pad. And that right there is the template. And it's such a clever like touch point marketing play, because that is going to start getting passed around everywhere.
We have one of our own here. Let's check it out. All right, there's our meme. There's our meme.
Yeah. So go on there, go follow our Twitter page. You can see all of our sick memes.
Super sick memes. Thanks to Sam, my brother, for being our in-house meme lord. We appreciate you very much.
But yeah, obviously this is leaning into his strength, which is that he is the internet candidate. He's the young person's candidate. He's trying to position himself that way, and I think he's succeeding.
Totally.
The dynamic around TikTok, the dynamic around all those sorts of things, it does not play well with boomers.
Right.
That's reality. They think... we'll cover this in a minute, but the whole like, I think the more you watch TikTok, the more Hamas you become.
Oh my God, that was epic.
Part for Christie, if you want to look that up, or for Haley, is probably plays well for boomers. Yeah,
just right? Some made up stat about how bad TikTok is and how much it makes you anti-Israel.
You know, one of the things I put on there is that I think this is the new satanic panic, right?
Ooh.
You know, so like in the 1980s and 90s, there's just like this panic that it was, hey, you know, the daycares run by Satanists and they're teaching their kids Satanism, and done by chain letters, like this spread throughout as like an intellectual pathogen throughout the population, and everyone freaked out. And I think a lot of TikToks like that too, right? We got like, it's making the kids eat Tide Pods, sort of moments, or now it's giving them the wrong opinions about foreign policy as like it's a fear-driven, demagogic sort of thing to do this, not on behalf of like, this is how we fix America, right? Vivek actually has a policy that we've debated on here about limiting all social media use for people under the age of 17, I think it was, or 16 or something.
Well, he's, I think that number might have gone, I think it was 16.
Yeah, 16 or something like that. Yeah. At that point being like, it's not the only one there, but she's not even doing that. She's doing a completely different thing where she's saying, no, just TikTok's the problem. Also, we're going to dox everybody on the internet, but leave that aside. Just TikTok's the problem, and I think it plays well. But I also think this is why Vivek may lose beyond his other assets and liabilities, is just because the biggest electorate is not millennials. It's not us.
No,
guys.
it's suburban boomer women. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
And totally fair. But I think that it illustrates that Vivek isn't playing that near-term game. He's not really playing for this election. He's playing to win over the youth by way of the internet. He's the only candidate who is speaking about crypto, which he did mention, and coming out and saying like SBF and FTX as opposed to like saying it out, Sam Bankman-Fried and all that stuff. Most boomers probably don't know who SBF is, right? They're not thinking about it in that way, but that was like very internet language
in the Republican
around that
primary,
issue.
I'm not so sure because there was all the conspiracy wrapped around in the original stuff about him giving money to Democrats and stuff. So I think like the high informed Republican voters probably do know. They don't know the ins and outs of but they just know when they hear FTX and SBF, they just hear big Democrat donor,
right?
and they get mad about it. Right?
Sure. But a lot of it is speaking directly to the internet. I mean, you can see it just in the notepad and everything he's doing. He's speaking to the youth through the internet, and it's hopefully it's a long-term strategy that will probably pay off.
He's an internet culture. If you're sub 40 on age, like Vivek is a very interesting candidate, and you see him everywhere. That's pretty much what it is.
Yep.
If you're above 40, you're probably still listening to people like Mark Levin, and they're bashing on Vivek, right? And it's a very big generational divide, right?
For sure.
Okay, here is the Nikki Haley clip that you were talking about with the TikTok thing.
We really do need to ban TikTok once and for all. And let me tell you why. For every 30 minutes that someone watches TikTok every day, they become 17% more anti-Semitic, more pro-Hamas based on doing that. We now know that 50% of adults 18 to 25 think that Hamas was warranted in what they did with Israel. That's a problem.
This is like video games cause mass shooters, and all inputs that I don't like are the things that create the outputs that I don't like.
I mean, it's just like
there's no science here.
Will you cite your source?
Yeah, like what's the math on this?
Yeah.
Like I kept seeing people like, I could probably scroll through these comments and people are like, I spent 30 minutes watching wrestling videos on TikTok. How many anti-Semitisms is that?
She pulls up a website. She's like, I got it from here, and it's just Wikipedia. It's just facts I made up about shit I know nothing about.
Yeah, it's just like everybody.
Checking my girlfriend's screen time.
Liam McCollum, who we had on the podcast like 2 episodes ago. Yeah. Damn, I need to check my girlfriend's screen time.
That's exactly right. Like you got to really worry about the effects. Go up with that image right there. After watching TikTok for 5 hours, we've been great. We should have done a reaction where after it cuts back, after watching her say that, it's like me in like a hijab, like the whole thing tied around the head and the mask.
We'll fix it in post.
God, I mean, it's so absurd, and it's just obviously fear mongering, and it's crazy to me that you're going to call, Vivek, who's he's got assets and liabilities and problems and things I agree with and things I disagree with. Annoying and all these things, but then go on there and to say unchallenged such an absurd thing. And she's going to do a press tour this week, and no one's going to be like, where did those numbers come from? Like, no one's going to, I swear to God, it's not going to happen. But if it does happen, it's going to be
everyone on
disastrous.
Twitter, everyone on X is like, this is absurd. Right? It just depends on the medium. Like, yeah, you're going on the corporate press tour. This is not the questions.
Yeah,
they're
look
not
at
being like
6.2 million people saw this on
from the Blaze too. Yeah,
and then
Blaze
anyone who scrolls past that is going to see, Spike Cohen and others. Their replies probably look different depending on the algorithm.
Spike Cohen can confirm. I've been on TikTok for a few hours over the past year, and I'm now 238% anti-Semitic. My rabbi was devastated. Oh goodness.
It reminds me. I was one time during the.
It's a car alarm.
Oh, okay.
Have no fear. We'll cut this out.
Get strapped. No.
Adrenaline pumping.
During the 2020 elections, I remember when the QAnon thing kind of went from something just I knew about to like mainstream.
Yeah.
Right. And there was a strange moment where I was talking to a friend of mine who is older than me. He's just about to retire. Wonderful man. I have tons and tons of respect for him. I really like him. But he's kind of like an old school hippie liberal, right? But we really connect on things like we both like Jordan Peterson and philosophy and psychology and these things, and we connect in this really dynamic way. And the first thing he does is sits down, we're chatting, get a beer, and he's like, man, I'm really worried. People will just like, they get on the internet and just like the QAnon just like goes into them, and then all of a sudden now they're just they belong to the QAnon cult now, and I'm so worried about these people just being infected with these ideas. And I was like, you're such a smart man. I don't understand how you could like leap to this conclusion, like take the agency away from all these people and like treat them like they're just nodes in a system for you to manage and like be worried about in this way. Now he's a guy without any power, right? He's just a guy who's just worried. But she's running for president. She's gonna be the most powerful person on the planet. And you're gonna put this person in charge of things when they have this kind of like they're worried about the fear-mongering of the Trump campaign while putting forward somebody who is just as bad, just on things that are civil liberties issues, like freedom of speech.
They're just pivoting to their own fear-mongering.
Yeah. Like your ability to access the app you want on your phone that you like, your ability to be anonymous on the internet. It's just a different kind of fear-mongering, right?
Well, and a lot of the stuff is super generational because it was probably like 2014-ish is when politics and internet culture started to kind of seep into American political life. And because I remember back in the day, was it Hillary Clinton, I think, where she's like, the hacker 4chan is trying to remember. Like
4chan was a character.
Yeah, it's like a character, not like a website, And it's like funny watching these like older folks that did not grow up with the internet that are like powerful people trying to grasp with what is happening in like internet spaces. And then they start, and there's clearly have no idea what they're talking about. It's the same thing with, we got all the crypto questions here on the debate too. It's the same type of dynamic where they start just saying things and they don't know what they're talking about. It's like 4chan is a hacker.
Yeah. It appears as if they have one advisor, like one young person on their staff who's like, okay, so like here, I'm going to explain it to you like I'm like you're 5, right? And here's like these 4 bullet points, and then that's just all they know about it.
Right.
And they just have to regurgitate that because that's what they were coached on.
Yeah.
The IMF put out propaganda to explain to the plebs what inflation is.
They didn't mention the money supply. I wonder why. The Biden administration bypassed 26 federal laws to build additional border wall in South Texas.
Somehow they still managed to blame Republicans for this horribly racist act. A Pentagon official was charged by federal authorities with promoting and furthering an illegal dogfighting ring in Maryland.
The Republican caucus did not appreciate the characterization. For all these stories and more, join the Discord.
To let us know what we should cover in the next episode of Human Reaction.
Well, and it's a similar thing because like the next thing, I think this was the first time cryptocurrency was ever mentioned in a debate. CBDCs have been mentioned, but like this was a question laid at Vivek
specifically about this. And I think it's interesting too, because of what we talked about. We didn't talk about it this week or last week, but Jamie Dimon came out and basically said, all of crypto is a scam. Chase Bank is not going to touch crypto. Like it was actually a pretty big statement. And it was, his response is both good. And then additionally to that, just to give him some love, Ron DeSantis knocked it out of park was his contribution here. So
yeah, well, and I do want to play the Jamie Dimon clip as well because it's like a 30-second clip, and just put it in parallel with this question. Actually, no. Let's do the Jamie Dimon clip first because that is a shorter clip,
right?
And then you can see how this question feels like it was written by Jamie Dimon. Classic. So the same day as the debate, there was the same day as the debate, there was a Senate hearing in the Finance Committee, I believe, and Jamie Dimon was being questioned by Elizabeth Warren, who is like the worst banker puppet that there is.
The banker senator.
She is the banker senator. Don't let people confuse and think that she's a Bernie person, because she is the banker senator. She always has been.
Did she just go gray? I feel like, has she always been?
I think she gave up her Pocahontas nature. Right?
Oh, that's what it was. That's what it was.
High cheekbones. She said it, not me.
She said it. I saw a tweet because, like, I'm obviously in the crypto space. I saw somebody's like, why does Elizabeth Warren hate us so much? It's like all the crypto people, and one person's like, we called her Pocahontas one too many times.
Yeah,
but yeah. So here is Jamie Dimon at the Senate.
I've always been deeply opposed to crypto, Bitcoin, etc. You pointed out the only true use case for it is criminals, drug traffickers, anti-money laundering, tax avoidance, and that is a use case because it is somewhat anonymous, not fully, and because you can move money instantaneously, and because it doesn't go through, as you mentioned, all these systems built up over many years, know your customers, sanctions, OFAC, they can get bypass all of that. If I was the government, I'd close it down.
Goes instantaneously and doesn't go through all this bureaucracy? Bureaucracy? Oh,
no.
What a weird endorsement.
He also opposes cash, to be clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and Chase Bank is now, they put out a big memo saying, if we believe any transactions that you're making are going towards crypto-related products, we will stop those transactions. So
wild.
Choose your bank carefully.
And they'll do that for now until the entire internet's crypto, and then they'll have to stop. So.
Yeah, exactly. But so now here's the question here laid out just later that same night towards Vivek on the crypto question.
You praised cryptocurrency like Bitcoin as an opt-out from our, quote, broken financial architecture, and you oppose efforts to regulate it. The head of the largest international crypto exchange just pleaded guilty to allowing his platform to launder money for terrorists, including Hamas. You say your cryptocurrency plan will, quote, ensure economic freedom for Americans, end quote. Won't it also ensure economic freedom for fraudsters, criminals, and terrorists?
Look, fraudsters, criminals, and terrorists have been defrauding people for a long time. Our regulations need to catch up with the current moment. The fact that SBF was able to do what he did at FTX shows that whatever they have as the current framework isn't working. And I think it is nothing short of embarrassing that Gary Gensler, the current leader of the SEC, in front of Congress, could not even say whether Ethereum counted as a regulated security or not. And so I think that this is just another example of the administrative state gone too far. Here's the dirty little secret in American politics today. The people who we elect to run the government are not the ones who are even actually running the government. It is the bureaucrats in those three-letter agencies that are writing regulations that Congress never gave them the authority to write. And the good news is a U.S. president can absolutely fix that. That takes a U.S. president with a spine. So what I've said is in my administration, by the end of year one, we will have a 75% reduction in the number of federal bureaucrats. We will shut down government agencies that should not exist. We will rescind any regulation that fails the test of West Virginia versus EPA, which is the most important Supreme Court case of our lifetime, that said if Congress didn't delegate that to an administrative agency, then it's unconstitutional. These are seismic changes. These are big changes that the next president can deliver without asking Congress for permission or for forgiveness. And I want people to understand that distinction, because people have been sold myths by politicians for a long time saying, I'm going to work with Congress to do this or that. Much of what you've heard on the stage from the other politicians fit that description. They need Congress. The things that I'm promising you, this is what the leader of the executive branch gets to do under Article 2 of the Constitution.
Thank you, sir.
Cut down the bureaucracy. That's how we grow our economy and put the Federal Reserve in its place. This is part of the crypto discussion.
No.
90% headcount reduction at the Fed.
You're out of time. 15 seconds, Governor DeSantis.
So one of the dangers that we're going to face, Biden wants, is a central bank digital currency. They want to get rid of cash, crypto. They want to force you to do that. They'll take away your privacy. They will absolutely regulate your purchases. On day one as president, we take the idea of central bank digital currency and we throw it in the trash can. It'll be dead on arrival.
That was a good moment. Yeah, because he saw the one thing that Vivek didn't hit on, and he took advantage of it.
And CBDC is something, it is like a boogeyman phrase that has entered the conservative ethos too. And it's actually kind of Shocking to me that Vivek didn't have that in there, because it's just from a marketing standpoint, it would have been good to hit that phrase.
I think this is actually an example of a tactical error on Vivek's part, where he does tend to get a little too academic in these debates. He should, I mean, it's good because he's communicating to the people he's communicating to that, hey, he actually knows what he's talking about, and he understands what Ethereum is. Whereas I bet the other three of them are like, got to look up Ethereum later.
Only the second biggest cryptocurrency.
right, exactly. But for most of the people watching this debate, right, he's probably a little over their heads, and they're probably a little glazed over. But then they hear Ron DeSantis come in with the thing they know, CBDC, and they're like, good job, Ron. That sounds good to me.
Yeah, because like everything that Vivek said, I agree with on that. But it is very much like you kind of have to be in the space to really understand what he's talking about. Like the idea that there's not a clear regulatory framework in the United States right now, and that Gary Gensler is just like flying by the seat of his pants, and he's not giving any clear definitions to anybody on what anything is creating a lot of muddy waters in the space right now. And then it allows for things like FTX to just kind of happen under the noses of everybody. Well, that's the main lobbying arm going to the SEC at the time, and that's the only person that Gary is willing to talk to seems to be Sam Bankman-Fried before the fraud is exposed, right? Like all that stuff is very true there. So like having a clear understanding of like what the hell are the rules right now? We don't even have like clear definitions, and it's been years where we've been trying to get these things, and nobody in the industry knows knows what's going on in America, so they have to go overseas because we don't know. Is America a free country or not? Like we don't know. There's no clear definitions on anything.
And
right?
with restrictions from banking on, not permitting people to transact with crypto, which is very common these days, it's even more incentivizing people to go off of the financial grid, so to speak, and into this nebulous, dark web, place where I think Jamie Dimon's kind of referring to in terms of, all this money laundering stuff,
Well, and here's the thing too, is Jamie Dimon, and this is what Elizabeth Warren, she was on CNBC the day after this, also talking and throwing all this stuff. And Elizabeth Warren was out here saying that we need to revise the Bank Secrecy Act that came in after 2001, after 9/11, which was a tool for the banks to track down payments so that they could grab terrorists, and it's basically like a losing your privacy on your banking type of a deal.
It's now how the government persecutes marijuana farms.
Yeah, and that's how they use Operation Choke Point to target gun owners and OnlyFans girls and things like that, right? Like it's the same thing. She was on talking about how we need a revision to be more broadly scoping and tighten the reins on everything. But, these are very real problems that are existing right now. In the meantime, also like the ETFs are going to be pumped through here in the next month. Like it's very confusing what's going on in America right now around this topic.
Additionally, he's also, he has a problem with this, Joe. It's like he has to signal the nerd, because that's how he demonstrates proficiency.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. He has to be able to say, oh, there's a Supreme Court case, and this is what it is, and this is what it does, and this is why it's important. All while saying, like, this is the problem with bureaucracy, this is a problem with our lack of ability to innovate, all these things, all in one tight little section, speaking super fast, going way over most people's heads. But it's when you're young, it's the only way to signal proficiency.
He has to be more academic to indicate that he actually knows what he's talking about.
So he's stuck. And that's one of the reasons why it's very difficult to win as a millennial right now, is because boomers don't trust millennials, probably on average. Not all boomers, not all millennials, but on average. Because for the most part, they're your children. Like most of the people who are looking at them was like, you young whippersnappers in your cryptocurrency.
It was interesting in this debate where I noticed DeSantis also kind of pulling the "I'm a young guy" card throughout the debate, because there was a lot of questions levied. There was a bunch of questions later on levied towards like, is Trump too old? Which I think is a very fair question. He's going to be the same. He's going to be above the age of when Biden became president, if he gets reelected, right? And those questions were levied at DeSantis, and DeSantis was very much like, we need a new generation. We need all this stuff, right? And when you look at it, like, I'm pretty sure DeSantis is younger, besides Vivek, is younger than everybody else that's been running as well too. Yeah. He's younger than Nikki, right?
Yeah. And additionally, and to give him full credit, he had an excellent ending. Like the way he ended, they kind of gave everyone that ending piece. Everyone did okay. I thought they all made their cases just fine and proficiently, but DeSantis's ending was just an absolute crusher.
It was, and I was wondering if Coolidge was going to be Vivek's pick.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because they go down the line of Vivek's last, right?
No,
I'm looking at Vivek like, oh, he's probably like, they're going to pick all the good ones.
Reagan, Washington, Lincoln, excellent. One of the guys I'll take inspiration from is Calvin Coolidge. Now, people don't talk about him a lot. He's one of the few presidents that got almost everything right. He understood the proper role of the federal government under the Constitution. We need to restore the U.S. Constitution as the centerpiece of our national life. And that requires a president who understands the original understanding of the Constitution, who has a good sense of the Bill of Rights, and who knows how we've gone off track with this massive fourth branch of government, this administrative state, which is imposing its will on us and is being weaponized against us. So Silent Cal knew the proper role of the federal government. The country was in great shape when he was president of the United States, and we can learn an awful lot from Calvin Coolidge.
One of the best things that people should know about Calvin Coolidge is that he is the guy who, because he was vice president, who then got kind of put into as president, was in position in the transition of power when his president that he was serving under basically couldn't do that much for all kinds of political reasons and additionally ideological reasons. Amity Shells has a book called Coolidge. It's excellent. People should read it as an example of, like, he was a progressive of his era. He's a Republican progressive, but he had an older school view of a lot of things when it came to the federal government that he just held very tightly to. And you want to look at the Depression of 1920 and 1921, where after World War I was over, new transition, old president dies, and effectively the last few months of his presidency is actually controlled by his wife. And then we go into the new presidency, huge depression happens, way steeper price deflation and inflationary pressures, way more unemployment than the Great Depression. But the government's response to was, well, we just got done with the war. We're going to cut all this spending. They cut spending. Interest rates went way up, controlled inflation. Deflation happened really sharply. Interest rates went back down. There was an automatic adjustment by the marketplace to the conditions that was causing the depression, aka way too much government inflation of the money because of war spending. And now they very quickly, in about 8 months, came out of it.
Wow. I'm curious, you said that the market responded, but wasn't 1920? Wouldn't that have been post-creation of the Fed?
The Fed was still relatively weak, right? It wasn't nearly as activist as it was during the... because
so they didn't
remember,
have
the Fed was originally just the lender of last resort. That was it.
Yeah.
It wasn't setting the interest rates for all prices in the economy at the time. The Fed's power grew over time.
Its scope expanded.
Yeah.
When did that happen that they actually started setting rates?
No, I don't remember exactly the date. And I'm not really sure if it was a direct empowerment post World War II. I can't remember. I know it's covered in Rothbard's America's Great Depression, but I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, like, and it's the same thing with like the income tax at the time, because like 1913 is when all the great evils basically set in American politics. The Fed, income tax, and like at the time, income tax was set into 5 brackets, and each bracket was either 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%, depending on which bracket you are for income tax. And then war comes along, and it was like top bracket was like 93%. Like, it was crazy. And the whole thing was, it would never go higher than 5%. Like, they would never do that. And then we were talking like 90% down the road, right? And then it gets brought back down, but then it's like, we settle at a nice like 30%. You know, that's what happens.
Right. They anchor you really high so that 30 feels great after
so like
90.
During that Woodrow Wilson era is really like, they say these are just like temporary measures. We just got to do all this stuff, and then nothing's ever truly temporary, right?
Very true. So what was the takeaway from this? Like, what's been the fallout across the media and everything post debate?
Well, clearly Christie won. that's
he white knighted the hardest, right? If you don't defend the woman running for president who wants to nuke the world and dox everybody on the internet,
he did come off as a little more of a moderator than anything. Like he turned out kind of scolding.
Preachy. Yeah, it was like, how dare you be mean?
Well, speaking of moderators, I'll actually say something that was quite clear to me is how much better Megyn Kelly is than like every other moderator that we had.
That
seems very evident, and like it shows why she was the number one like new top news personality before Tucker Carlson. Like she had that Fox News spot before Tucker. It's just like she's so much more charismatic than the other two that were beside her, and it was like very clear to me. And also she kind of controlled the stage when things started getting out of hand. She was the one that brought him back in, and like she did a very good job, I would say. So like kudos to Megyn Kelly.
Yeah, it showed a lot of media savvy, which obviously she has. But I noted at one point she was like, "Hey, stop shouting! Like they can't hear you. They can't hear you." Like
and then everything calmed down, and everybody kind of took their turns again. It was
right. It wasn't about like, oh, it's not your turn. It was like you're communicating nothing right now, so like just stop, and that worked well.
Yeah, but like the media landscape, I think it's what everyone would expect. The kind of establishment class, the corporate journos, they all think it was either Christie or Nikki Haley that won, and then DeSantis in third, then Vivek at a way down at the bottom. Like he should have taken 10th place in their eyes, right? Like,
so how is it that DeSantis is still polling the highest? Is he still first of this field?
Down, right?
Yeah, but he's still. When you look at the early primary states, he's still polling in second behind Trump. He's at a ton of spend. Okay, so keep in mind your segmentation. Donor class, small group of people. The people who care about politics, a larger group of people, but still a minority when it comes to what determines elections, right? Mm-hmm. So take an easy state that has like 1 million people. For the most part, what you'll find is out of 1 million people, about 700,000 will vote in general elections. And then about 400 to 500,000 will vote in the primary. And then half of them are Democrat and half of them are Republican. So you're looking at a group of like 200,000 people in a 1 million person state, right? Those are rough numbers, but that's kind of how it breaks out generally. In a place like Iowa or New Hampshire or South Carolina, these early primary states, how do you talk to that large group of people of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who make up the primary electorate? Well, they're not watching the debates, right? They're not watching the whole thing. They might watch some clips of it. They'll probably watch if they already have committed to a candidate. But the people who are open, who are actually being persuaded, you're just catching them on ads, right? You're getting them in the mailers, you're getting them on digital ads, you're getting them on television. So at each one of those steps, like it's your ability to communicate to them and get money. And DeSantis had the most amount of money for the most amount of time. So he has the most amount of probably existing name identification positively in these early states.
I mean, I pointed out, I've gotten so many texts from his campaign and like none almost from any other campaign. Right. So I guess that would be indicative of a lot of spend going on his behalf.
Right.
Well, and then on the opposite side, the internet pretty much believes Vivek won, which had been classic for all of these debates, right? And we were just scrolling through News Nation's YouTube earlier, and we noticed that all the clips are like sub 10,000 views on like all the other candidates, and then all the Vivek clips are like 200,000 views, 400,000 views, 500,000 views. So like the internet candidate, again, Vivek, the kind of traditional style candidate, Nikki Haley or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be the case.
Yeah. Only thing I know is that the only people who like Christie is the New York Times. Yeah. And Nikki Haley herself.
And like Jason Calacanis from the All In podcast, right? Like it's like actually like people that are traditionally Democrats seem to really like Christie.
And that was one of the major stories that came out of this too, is that Nikki Haley is getting a major spend from major Democratic donors.
Interesting.
To her super PACs and to her like allied organizations.
What's the strategy there?
Well, they don't want Trump.
Gotcha.
Right. They want someone who is going to be more controlled in their engagement. I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, like, I think if you ask any of them, there's a reasonable point they're probably going to make about like American discourse and like making sure that we don't have this loose cannon in the White House. I don't see how she's not more of a loose cannon than Trump, to be honest. Just in a worse way.
She just plays ball. Like she's somebody that's going to play ball, and that's all that's wanted by the donor class.
Yeah, she'll take your meeting. She's not going to blow you up on Twitter afterwards. Things like that.
She's not going to say that she'll buy Greenland.
Yeah.
Elephant in the room, though. Trump's still winning by like a ridiculous margin over all these candidates. So at this point, is it still a foregone conclusion? He's the nominee.
You take all the candidates, and you got 60% of the total Republican electorate in most of these primary states are already on Trump's side. He's going to crush New Hampshire, for example.
Well, I think that there's a clip from Christie at the debate where he's talking about the Trump stuff, which I think might be applicable to this conversation right here.
You want to give him more airtime?
Yeah.
The white knight of the establishment?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
He's more the White Castle.
More.
Am I right?
Have a nice meal and get out of this race. Oof.
Yeah. So yeah, here is he was asked about Trump here, and Christie believes Trump's right to vote will be taken away.
Governor Christie, would you like to begin?
Sure. Thank you. I want you all to kind of picture in your minds Election Day. You'll all be heading to the polls to vote, and that's something that Donald Trump will not be able to do because he will be convicted of felonies before then, and his right to vote will be taken away. You know, look, here's the bottom line. You can boo about it all you like and continue to deny reality. But if we deny reality as a party, we're going to have 4 more years of Joe Biden. When my colleagues here raised their hands and said they would support him, even if he was a convicted felon, the bigger problem with it is they were confirming the lies he's told to the American people. If you're too timid to take on Trump, believe me, others will see that timidity. Xi, Putin, and the Ayatollah, the border crossers on the southern border, and the criminals in our streets. They'll sense that timidity, and they'll take advantage of that failure of leadership. We need to get back to an old American idea that every person is responsible for their own conduct, even a president.
That's all I wanted from that.
Well, in Florida, he'll be able to vote, so to be clear.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Even if he's...
Yeah, I remember when Florida legalized felon voting. You can't vote while you're serving, but when you're done.
Yeah.
Oh, I got you.
And that's actually an American value, and he's profoundly un-American by advancing the opposite. Because in America, when you pay a penalty, pay a price, and you are punished for a crime, afterwards you're innocent again. That's how it used to work until prosecutors like him came along and decided to make every crime a forever penalty so that, you know, they can drive things to the prison industrial complex.
Well, something that I noticed in the aftermath of this, and just recently I've been noticing in like conservative punditry, is there seems to be more and more concern of something like a 14th Amendment situation happening to Donald Trump, or like that he legitimately will not be able to run for whatever reason because of the felonies and stuff like that. Like I'm noticing that more among the conservative punditry class. So like, which does make, if that is the case, and there's even just a shot of that being the case, does make this whole undercard debate much
really
more of a bigger deal.
And that's why everyone knows it's a big deal, right? I mean, that's why, honestly, when people say, oh, Vivek, he's just running, you know, no one knows why he's in the race sort of thing, is like, no, you don't get it. If I was his advisor, what I would be doing is running this sort of race. Here's why. As much as he's not the one on stage attacking Trump, he's the one who, if Trump can't do it for some reason, would be the only logical choice after that. Yeah. Other than maybe DeSantis, who's attacked Trump, but he's maintained kind of
there's a loyalty issue that among Trump voters that they feel like DeSantis is very disloyal. Like all the disloyalty rhetoric that is thrown towards DeSantis from the Trump camp is like very much felt by the base.
And that's also for whatever reason, Vivek hasn't gotten that. Even as he said, we need new legs for the America First movement. So,
well, and I think that that's just because he has been generally the most supportive candidate of Trump, whereas, and I don't think that he's drawn any real criticism from Trump directly, whereas Ron DeSantis has been branded Ron DeSanctimonious, right? And he's had a lot of attacks levied his way by Trump and by Trump supporters. So I think you're right. I don't think DeSantis is just like a shoe-in candidate.
There's campaign
for the Trump
staff
base.
conflicts between the two camps, and then there has just been DeSantis on Trump action, like that has been infighting.
Again, phrasing, Kyle. You really need to watch that, please.
But Vivek has openly said that first thing he would do is pardon Donald Trump, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer too.
Which from a game theory perspective here, like, you could almost see, like, if things got very hairy for Trump on all this stuff, and he gets blamed, like, you know, he gets hit by treason, 14th Amendment, can no longer run for president. Like, if like the worst case scenario for Trump happens, then the most obvious thing is to push the America First movement, being like, Vivek is the new torch bearer. We need to have a new youthful energy come in and drive all the people towards him, right? Yeah. Like that would be the game play.
The question is whether or not Mr. Trump would ever do that.
He's too narcissistic. Yeah. He'd be like, no, I can run from jail. Like that's what he would do.
Yeah. 14th Amendment be damned.
Well, of course.
But, I mean, and that is also dependent upon the court's engagement with this and how quickly a decision of that nature would get to the Supreme Court, and where would the Supreme Court go?
True.
But that's a question. They're also interpreting, you're asking an originalist to interpret the 14th Amendment if he is convicted by a lower court of treason. Might not go the way you think, guys, because these guys aren't conservatives. They're originalists. They're textualists. I don't know what Gorsuch would do in that moment, right?
Interesting.
Well, and something that I want to say is how scared people are of Vivek. We have this clip from Van Jones on how he was so literally shaking. Because this young Trump Nazi figure is just spewing his vile poison out on the debate stage. So if you don't know Van Jones, he's a former communist that works for CNN as a contributor.
Former communist?
And
I believe he's a former Marxist. I don't believe he uses the label anymore.
Once an asset, always an asset.
Okay.
KGB agent Van Jones.
I think we're just spewing fake news out here. Our vile poison.
That's all nothing burgers.
Perhaps.
But yes, this was a fascinating clip to watch here.
And the smug, condescending way that he just spews this poison out is very, very dangerous because he won't stop Trump, but he's going to outlive Trump by about 50 years. And you're watching the rise of an American demagogue that is a very, very despicable person. Yeah. And I was shaking listening to him talk because a lot of people don't know that is one step away from Nazi propaganda coming out of his mouth.
Wow.
He was just shaking.
How dare he?
Literally.
Bitcoin things. That's exactly what Hitler would have done.
It's true.
He said January 6th might have been influenced by the FBI. That's what Hitler would. What are you talking? What's he talking about? Like, and that's the thing that's so outrageous is he would say that, and all the other panelists be like, yeah. I mean, come on.
Well, it's scary because Vivek can live for another 50 years.
Plus, he's younger. Yeah. He's not saying what I think he should say.
Yeah, we got 50 years of this guy.
The most concerning thing about this to me is this rhetoric about it being dangerous, right? Like, this is the whole dangerous for our democracy thing, just the continuation of it. Mm-hmm. The fact that someone can consider speech dangerous when it's not, overtly inciting violence is like really concerning. It just shows a lack of tolerance of viewpoints, a lack of ability to have civil discourse. That is more dangerous than anything Vivek could possibly say.
Totally agree. And it's so ridiculous. I mean, there are, of course, criticisms of Vivek. We're not the Vivek's fan club in here, although maybe Kyle is.
I like the guy.
But Van Jones's rhetoric here is, I mean, not only is hilarious, because he's literally shaking, that like you're a grown man. You're a grown man shaking because a presidential candidate said some things you disagree with. What are we doing here? Your job is to talk on television.
Well,
what are we doing here? What's going on?
Well, we have to remember that Donald Trump literally stole democracy and all this stuff. And this is just the next version of Trump.
He's the Hamburglar of democracy.
All the rhetoric that we had to deal with for years. It's all right here.
Christie is unequivocally the Hamburglar. Okay.
Oh, God. Oh, man. So, Vivek did on the aftermath, did trigger some stuff. And I would talk about other people's aftermath from it, but they got almost no coverage. So, I mean, from the point of view of like, he said things that got the media to talk to him about those things. I mean, that's another measurement of success. And it was no doubt that almost all that attention went to Vivek because he said the most controversial and interesting things.
Well, he did. I mean, like right towards the end there, he had that crazy, like, rant that I don't know that we're going to play necessarily, but or is that what you're pulling up now?
Well, this is more the reaction to that, where he goes over the claims. Do
we need to play that for context? I don't know. Maybe we don't have it. I have a timestamp if we want to try to pull it up on the long form. Because I mean, like he really. I mean, we don't necessarily have to, but he hits a laundry list of things that were.
January 6th, 9/11, Great Replacement Theory, all those things.
Let's play that. Let's play that.
Here's my issue with all three of my other colleagues on this debate stage, is all three of them have been licking Donald Trump's boots for years for money and endorsements. Ron DeSantis, you've been a great governor, but you would have never been one without actually begging Donald Trump for that endorsement.
And you attacked him in your
Nikki
book
Haley.
a year ago.
Same thing with Christie as a lobbyist, begging them for COVID money for his special interests in New Jersey, prepping him for the debates last time around. These people are now Monday morning quarterbacking some decision he made. I think the real enemy is not Donald Trump. It's not even Joe Biden. It is the deep state that at least Donald Trump attempted to take on. And if you want somebody who's going to speak truth to power, then vote for somebody who's going to speak the truth to you. Why am I the only person on the stage, at least, who can say that January 6th now does look like it was an inside job? That the government lied to us for 20 years about Saudi Arabia's involvement in 9/11. that the great replacement theory is not some grand right-wing conspiracy theory, but a basic statement of the Democratic Party's platform, that the 2020 election was indeed stolen by big tech, that the 2016 election, the one that Trump won for sure, was also one that was stolen from him by the national security establishment that actually put up the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that they knew was false. There's a reason why I'm the only person on the stage who can say these things. That's what it's going to take, not people who are licking his boots one time and now Monday morning quarterbacking him and criticizing him when it's convenient.
Boom. Scorched earth.
So let's list them off. 9/11.
Well, before that,
you do it in order.
J6.
January 6th, influenced by the FBI, or potentially.
It seems to be more and more clear as time goes on.
9/11.
Saudi involvement. For 20 years, the government lied to us about that.
I lost track.
I think it was
I have them all.
replacement after that.
Great replacement is Democrat policy.
Democrat policy, not just a conspiracy theory.
Stolen election by big tech.
Yeah, in 2020.
In 2020.
And then 2016.
And then intelligence apparatus.
Russia
stolen.
hoax.
Russia hoax.
Basically undermined his presidency.
And also just undermined.
I don't think that's exactly an accurate statement. It didn't get stolen by him, but I see what he's saying.
No,
like,
he's equivocating it. I think that is a correct statement to say it that way.
Well, it's more like the national security establishment used a campaign product of a dossier created by the Hillary Clinton campaign through a third party.
And then completely bogged down 4 years of the presidency.
To make his presidency hell, right? Yeah. And that's completely accurate and something that people do miss. And then the last one was he did the Hillary Clinton hoax, and then there was one more, wasn't there?
I thought 2016 was the last one.
Oh, well.
Yeah, it might have been. Anyways, he basically just like hit a laundry list of like unmentionable topics.
Hell of a moment.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
So obviously he got a lot of coverage afterwards, including this interview with this, as Kyle would say, lady reporter.
I couldn't remember her name.
I'm kidding.
In the pre-planning, I couldn't remember her name. Don't throw this on me, Dave. She's like a famous person. I just don't remember her name.
I can't remember her name right now, but
all of them are the same person to me. All of these corporate news people, they're all the same person.
They all look the same, do they, Kyle?
They do. They're all just like intelligence operative stooges or useful idiots.
Nice.
All right, so yeah, here is her confronting about this vile poison.
When the Democratic Party and Biden, the leader of the Democratic Party now, as recently as 10 years ago with Mayorkas sitting at his side, expressly talking about non-white populations exceeding white populations, that being a good thing, and immigration policies they've advanced to achieve that result remain in Mexico, which they're not enforcing. Let's have that debate rather than saying this is a dog whistle, this is going to cause violence. What I'm worried about is that we are going to have, I would say I want to be careful in the way I speak about this because I don't want to get to a place about violence. We're skating on thin ice as a country right now. But as a leader, it is important to give people the permission to say in public what they'll otherwise say in private. A lot of it grounded in truth, to be able to have that debate without labeling somebody
one question,
a xenophobe or a racist or a denier or anything else.
Let's just say, and I'm not going to use the term anymore because it is a dog whistle for people out there who are looking for reasons to go after people of color and Jews. But let's just assume that was something that was happening. Is that so wrong? What's wrong with people
first of all,
color?
let me just pause right there.
Being a majority in this
let me just pause right there. This is a legitimate discussion for us to have. But we can't have it both ways to say that this is something that we're actually advocating for. It's an express policy, and we acknowledge that it's part of an express policy objective. Then let's actually get to the debate about whether this is good or not for the country, right? And so I embrace that, but thank you for getting to a useful place rather than just saying anybody who's saying this, if a person on the right says that it's a conspiracy theory, if a Democrat says it's immigration policy. And my view is I don't care about skin color. I could care less for skin color. Do you share the ideals of this country?
The Jews will not replace us. Comes from the great replacement theory. I know you have to go, but just go back and look at that.
And I would say go back and look at air for the people that are watching this, the videos that Mike Johnson has released of Capitol Police allowing them in. We should be able to at least have that debate in the open and air the video of Biden saying exactly what otherwise is described as a conspiracy theory with Mayorkas 10 years ago. Let's have honest debate. We can disagree, but don't label somebody a insurrectionist or a racist or a homophobe or a denier or anything else as a way of silencing debate. We should talk about it on the merits. And that last question you asked is exactly what many Republicans also want to be debating in the open. Whether or not
I agree. Merits, facts. That's what we need to be doing.
Amen. So show the video.
That's enough.
Yeah. As a pro-immigrant person, I think this is the best thing we could do, is to talk about this in public rather than saying anyone who's talking about this needs to shut up and is a terrible person and is encouraging violence to people. Like, her whole argument that a dog whistle is a way for him to say this in a way that he is now responsible for how someone insane might take this and then go do something violent. It's absolutely absurd. And it's irresponsible of her to do that, because that's not American. Americanism trusts the general people to be sovereign, meaning they get to say what they want to say. And if you want to shame for it, okay. But then you actually might have to engage him when he calls you out and say, this is the policy of the Biden administration. So, and then she can't do that. She won't do that.
Well,
she pretends like it doesn't happen.
Before this clip even started, they're going into the January 6th section and also the 9/11 stuff that he said prior to this clip on the Great Replacement thing. And she just like keeps interrupting him the whole time, just being like, oh, but it's just like, it's like the most terrible thing that has ever happened on American soil. Like, she's just like going through that, and it's just like emotionalism here, just trying to like pull this out of him, and just like, calm down. We can have a conversation about all this stuff. Like, we don't have to be like name throwing all around here. Like, let's have like an actual dialogue as a free people. We can do this.
Can we really quickly just clarify the Great Replacement theory? Is that the idea that you know, American birth rates are below replacement and there's an influx of immigrants coming, and so they're, you know, effectively you have this like replacement of Americans?
Well, there's
happening.
Two, right? There's two different theories, right? And what she's referring to is that there is a old, and it goes way back, actually. It's a Great Replacement theory that's bigger than, it goes back to, I can't say the word because it's going to get us censored online. It goes back to Nazi Germany. All right. So there was a theory that the part of the grand Jewish cabal was out there pulling the strings. And one of the reasons why they liked open immigration was to get, you know, more easily controllable dark-skinned people into Germany. And this is specifically immigrants from Eastern Europe and Roma and all kinds of other peoples, so that because they could be controlled better than the German people could, because they're smart and they're better and all that kind of stuff. Dumb Nazi BS, right? It has an American interpretation that goes a long ways back too, about like the importation of the Chinese to Mexicans to other people that are non-German and non-Nordic, Northern European people. That's not what he's talking about, though. What he's talking about is the very specific policy of the Democrats for a very long time of making irrelevant the voting bloc of Republicans, which is the largest group of voting bloc Republicans, is white men. Statistically irrelevant. To make that group statistically irrelevant by importing as many non-white, statistically more likely to be leftists, people who have other skin colors, to give Democrats a forever majority, right? So there's a great video from Van Jones actually advocating for this very policy, as he's calling, all this thing. So there is a history of this particular strategy being overtly said by the left. No doubt about that.
Asking the white majority to do something is difficult. And I think it'd be easier if we just acknowledge that it's difficult. No ethnic majority group in 10,000 years of human history that I can find ever went from being a majority to being a minority and liked it. And that's basically the request from the racial justice left, is that we want the white majority to go from being a majority to being a minority and like it. That's a tough request. And the reality is that change is hard. Change that you want is hard. Change that is good is hard.
So what he implies there is that this is bad for whites. Why? Good question. We should ask. What he's implying there is that whites have a right, or like I could be upset about this very request. So why are you asking this of American whites? Is it an open question that we should debate? And you could say, hey, it shouldn't. My position is it shouldn't matter, right? What the color of your skin is. What should matter is the content of your ideas and your character. That should be what matters. And I want to engage in that space in the debate. And we can actually bring out these things. So then we're not making this clumsy backdoor cloak and dagger argument, because this goes all the way up. I mean, the Biden administration is celebrating the ways of immigration because it makes whites a minority. Why is it good to make whites a minority? Tell me why. Please.
Blocks.
Yeah, if that's all you're doing, if that's the reason why you support immigration is to maintain your power, that's a different motive for immigration than me. Maybe our policy shouldn't be determined by that. So let's actually show it. The next one down is Biden talking about the same thing. It's a very short video. No, in the notes, Kyle, of him saying this very celebrative point.
But African communities, Asian communities, Hispanic communities, and the wave still continues. It's not going to stop, nor should we want it to stop. As a matter of fact, it's one of the things I think we can be most proud of. So there's a second thing in that black box, an unrelenting stream of immigration, nonstop. Folks like me who are Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America from then and on will be white European stock. That's not a bad thing. That's a source of our strength.
So I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing, but I think we should debate it. And I don't think you should be out there saying, anyone who says that this is the policy motivation for the Democrat non-action on immigration, inability to pull together, even when they had very large majorities, such as Obama, an actual immigration reform bill that would have dealt with things like DACA and did things like that. But instead, they focused on other things. This is why it maintains the status of a political football rather than something the Democrats really want to solve, because they want to maximize this given situation. That is an open accusation. The Democrats should have to reconcile with that, but they get kind of like this protective shield by the media saying anyone who says that this is their strategy is conducting the first form of great replacement theory, which is racist and terrible and bad, that no one agrees with, except for like the Daily Stormer. And who cares what those nut jobs think? What we're talking about is mainstream politics in America. One side gets to talk about it and the other side can't. And that's not how we can do democracy.
And so you feel like Vivek in this debate and in his post-debate interview has sort of shifted that conversation or opened it up a bit so that it can be discussed.
Well, it mainstreamed it. I mean, Megyn Kelly is talking live today with Glenn Greenwald about this, right? And who's a big free speech warrior, so it makes sense. But that's the space that really matters. I mean, if anything he does is introduce to the American public the lexicon of not just this idea, which is important, but not the biggest idea, of January 6th, of, Whitmire. He's talked about that on the campaign trail and how much of that was entrapment and we've talked about that in the show, of the Russia hoax, of the intelligence agencies colluding to make sure he couldn't win in 2020. All of those things are immense contributions to the American dialogue, in my opinion.
Awesome.
Agreed.
Well, I think that wraps up our coverage of the fourth Republican presidential primary debate.
And the last one.
Of the year. There'll probably be one like right before the debates, I bet.
Before
the last scheduled one.
Like
before Iowa.
Before Iowa. And
gotcha.
So, yep.
Well, we will be sure to come back and do another debate recap for that one as well. But that concludes this episode. For David Rand and Kyle Mack, I'm Joe Sheehan. Bennett back there on the ones and twos. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to Human Reaction. Help us fight internet censorship by liking, commenting, subscribing, following, and sharing the show with your friends. To find us around the internet, visit linktree.com/humanreactionpod. And remember, maybe it was more that like DeSantis had his best performance so far.
I definitely think that DeSantis, he seemed more personable, seemed like he had more of a spine. He was like much more aggressive. It was interesting watching him and Vivek tag teaming Nikki Haley throughout the whole thing.
Phrasing. Have to go back and cut that out.
Jesus.
Nope. You guys made it weird, not me.
I like all the attention, boys, was her line.
She did say that.
It was
very weird.
Very strange.